Well, thank you for joining me today.
You're
Today,
welcome.
I have Carole with me, a past hypnotherapy client, to share a little bit about her experience. So, thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with me today.
No worries.
So, Carole, first question is just to maybe give me a little bit of an idea of what inspired you to make a hypnotherapy appointment in the first place.
Well, about 2.5 years ago, I really delved into meditation and I found the mindful movement channel, and I've been basically hooked since then. So I have over 100 of my favorite meditations all saved. Depending on how I'm feeling, I'll listen to a certain one. Of course, I have my favorites, but I feel like meditation over anything that I've ever done,
Mhm.
including one-on-one therapy, change in nutrition. I mean, anything has helped me the most in terms of my personal development and growth. And I felt like this was just a natural next step. I had done a lot of personal development through meditation,
Mhm.
learned a lot about myself, made some changes. And I realized through meditation the power of the mind and how incredible. I mean, we're our own healers. So I just knew that this hypnotherapy session would get me to the next level, um, because I felt ready for that. I wanted, those recorded meditations that I listen to all the time from your channel. I wanted one for myself that was very personalized,
Mhm.
that hit all the little nuggets that I always want to remind myself of. So.
Sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the beauty of a personalized session is, you can listen to the recordings on the channel over and over again, but there may be like a breath practice that you really love, but it doesn't
Mhm.
go along with the body scan that you love. So making
Right.
something that is really personalized, like you said, can take you to the next level. So, and I personally had come to meditation through personal development as well. So I can connect with you and resonate with you on that as well. So thank you. Are you comfortable sharing a little bit about the issue that you were hoping to work on through your session?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that, I mean, I know we'll talk about this later, what I found beneficial, but the first 30 minutes that we spent when you asked me very specific questions, that was very beneficial. I did a lot of work leading up to the hypnotherapy session, but I feel like if I didn't do a little bit of work leading up to it, I sometimes find it hard to answer questions without really thinking them through or meditating
Sure.
them through. So I feel like on the spot, I might not have really thought about the right thing or what I really wanted to do, but that was really helpful. And so for me, um, I've been really working on discovering who my true self is
Hmm.
and letting go of my desire to, or my habit of adapting my personality based on who I'm with.
Sure.
So in my extreme need to be accepted, or what I tell myself is, to be accepted by whoever I'm with, I kind of have to adapt my personality or my answers or my actions based on what I feel they're looking for.
Sure.
So, and it's like, who is Carol? What is Carol like? So it was really diving deeply into letting go of the fear of being compared or judged and the
Sure.
fear of not being accepted, and really just putting my own self out into the world, making decisions that I know are good for me and then might make other people feel uncomfortable, and
Sure.
feeling confident about those decisions.
Yeah. So you're saying that you had a bit of a almost like a chameleon like experience where you were adapting and you were changing based on the situation, based on who you were interacting with, and using the hypnotherapy session, you were able to really uncover the real Carol, the true you and connect with those
Yes, and
desires.
it really helped to go back in time and, go back to my childhood. For me, it was a little bit more towards adolescence where, without giving my whole life story, where
Sure.
I decide, my little child decided that these things were necessary to get the attention that I needed or the love that I needed.
Sure.
Um, and they kind of guided subconsciously my decisions for so long,
Hmm.
and now I've realized that I no longer need that part, and that
Yeah.
I have the confidence and the ability to make my own decisions. And if that makes people feel slightly uncomfortable, or if they don't agree with me, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be loved by them or accepted by them. It's just,
Mhm.
in fact, I've realized that in fact, most of the time it inspires them. It was something that I was fearful of, but now it's something that
Sure.
actually inspires others to do the same. Um,
Yeah. You stepping into your own truth enables people around you to do the same, it sounds like.
exactly. And
Yeah.
their truth might be different, but
Sure.
seeing me express my own kind of gives them that power to do it themselves. One of
Okay.
the words you used in my in the recording was, from now on, I easily make decisions that align with my true self. And for some reason, that sentence, it's like as soon as my ego or whatever you call it, my limiting belief goes into the like, well, maybe, no, it's like, no, no, I easily make decisions now that align with my true self. And then I move on and I don't go through that story in my head back and forth and back and forth.
Right, right. I
So,
always find it fascinating, having a conversation with a client after they've gone through the session and experienced listening to the recording after the session, 21, 30, however long days. What you latch onto, what your mind latches onto. And that
right.
word easily really resonated with you, whereas, someone else might find another tidbit that they really latch onto. But it's something that I find just fascinating how that one word, that one phrase, goes with you long after the recording is over. And you
Mhm.
can hear, the easily making decision in your mind when it comes time to actually make that decision.
Right.
So,
I remember, I was like, okay, I committed to listening to 21 days in a row, and it was over Christmas, so I definitely didn't do every 21 day, but I did a lot of it. And a lot of the times where I didn't feel like doing, because I'm like, I know the thing by heart now. I always learned something new. It was always funny because it's like
yeah.
every time I listened to it, it was like, oh, I would notice something different, or I would focus on something different. So it was definitely beneficial to listen it to over and over again. And yesterday I listened to it again, kind of to set myself up for today. So yeah.
Yeah, and once you have the recording, it's yours forever. And I
Mhm.
always tell people, if the issue that you came to see me for starts to, like, show up or surface a little bit, even after your 21 days, you have that recording and it's just, a little refresher, and it can be really helpful because, the beliefs that drive our actions and our habits and the issues that we have, like you said, was they were from your adolescence and oftentimes even earlier than that. And holding on to that belief for so long into our adult years, it does take some time to reinforce the new beliefs, reinforce the fact that that old belief is outdated. So, the recording is yours. And like you said, it even benefits you after the recommended 21 days have
Yeah.
been long over.
Yes.
So that's great. I'm glad to hear that. So maybe you could share a little bit about your experience. Well, you did talk a little bit about during the session, the conversations that we had, but maybe immediately after or over the course of the 3 weeks listening to the recording.
Yeah, I mean, I that day I made sure that out, I have young kids, so the kids were going to be out of the house. And I was kind of hoping my husband was going to be out of the house, but he wasn't. So, um, but I made sure that my whole environment was clear. And I didn't realize that you would be watching me. And so that's something that I would just tell clients that it wasn't because it bothered me. It's just knowing that I had to set that up,
Yes,
kind of
beforehand.
like, and then I would, because I was like, oh, I hope I'm not wasting time, doing the setup, because I had to change a bit of the setup. But no, I think that I just made sure that prior to the session, like I was really calm and doing something really calming half an hour before. I set up more time just in case it went over time. And you know, I didn't like finish the session and be like, check, that's done now. I'm going to move on to my next task, because I'm really task oriented like that. It was okay. Like even that day, I need to sit down and think about all the things that we talked about. And then I need to listen to it like for sure tomorrow and the days after. And you know what I mean? Um, is kind of that what you're looking for?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think that, you were an ideal client because you, like you said, you took the time to prepare a little bit, and you came into the session with a bit of an idea of the direction that you wanted to go. And then there was still, you understood there was still work to do after the session was over. I do
Yes. I
find,
mean, I,
go
I,
ahead.
I know enough about. It's like, well, I mean, I think I know enough to know that it's like you can't just do a session and you're gonna wake up the next day and your life's gonna be
Right,
transformed.
right.
These limiting beliefs that you have, they're like ingrained in your subconscious. And
Sure.
I have stickers from my daughter this morning, but anyways. Um, and so it's like anything, it's your brain will naturally go there just because you've trained it to do that over all these years. This is what you've done, so it's slowly kind of retraining your brain to go
Right.
somewhere else. And um I just thought it was such a great time because a lot of people have a lot of time right now. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
considering doing it, um I'm not saying that I'm grateful for COVID or the pandemic or anything like that, but it has forced people to spend a lot of time with themselves and learn a lot about themselves and be very still. And we can find a lot of great things, about it. So it's just a great time to do that, because once life starts back to normal, which we know it won't, um, you're on autopilot, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, the little bit of slowing down gives you the opportunity to explore a little bit about what you really want and how you
yes.
might shape your life in a different way when you have the opportunity to make any changes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. A little bit of a silver lining of the situation of the world right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you say that there are any big shifts or changes that you've noticed since the session, or even
Um,
small?
oh, for sure. I mean, definitely the biggest one for me is that word easily makes decisions, because I um I just always go back to that. And I feel like if I listen to it, I mean, I don't know. I just have a better understanding now. When you took me back to, a certain time in my childhood, I just have
Hmm.
a better understanding of why I created these beliefs. And that at the time, they were just meant to protect me.
Sure.
At that age, my brain decided that that would be the best way to make me feel accepted or good,
Hmm.
based on what was happening in my family life. And it was just meant to protect me. So it wasn't a bad thing,
Right.
but now it's outdated. Now that information is now outdated and it no
Hmm.
longer serves me. So understanding that, I think the first step is definitely being aware, but then understanding why, like, and then determining what your limiting beliefs are, but then understanding
Hmm.
why you created them in the first place is really
Right.
important. So the
Yeah.
hypnotherapy session will allow you to do that. Because for me, the more I understand, the more information I have, the more my mind really truly says, yes, you're right. I no longer need that information. Like it's no longer helping me. Like thinking that way was a very childlike way to think, but
Right.
I so I don't need that anymore.
Right.
So
And it just gives you the power back, right? You
yes,
have the power
exactly.
to create new beliefs. And I like the way that you said it. It's a childlike way of thinking, but it wasn't a bad thing that you developed those beliefs. They were serving you when you did develop them. And
Mhm.
now, they're not serving you. They're holding you back. So that's really a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So one more question, if you don't mind. Try not to take up too much of your time here. But if you were to give a piece of advice or share some information with someone who is considering hypnotherapy, but maybe is on the fence, what would you tell them?
Um, well, I would say do it. um, to me, there's nothing more important than, I mean, your mind and your mental health guides so much of your life. It's
Mhm.
such an important part of your overall health and how that, people invest a lot on exercise programs or, nutrition boxes that are being delivered to their house.
Right,
But it's like, when was the last time you invested something on something so important that could change so many like pivotal decisions in your life?
right,
It's just a big, it's it it has a ripple effect. You're not going to wake up the next
mhm,
day a new person, but it's like that investment that's going to just have that small little ripple effect that's going to keep going, that's going to keep giving, right? So, I mean, it's not a cheap investment, obviously, people know that, but it's well, actually, I mean, any money you can spend, you can look at how much you spend in groceries and on coffee at Starbucks every
right.
day, and you can kind of like, is your Starbucks coffee more important than your mental health? I don't know. I just, for me,
Sure.
it's just having a liberated mind
Mm,
is so freeing that there's no like um, monetary value that you can put on that,
right.
and then it also affects the rest of your family and your peers, so
Sure.
it's not an effect only on you. It's like more patience with your children and whatever you'd like to be working on. So for me, it's
Yeah.
my only tip would be, um, you know do a bit of stillness and work on yourself a little bit first,
Sure. Yeah.
because those first 30 minutes, when you're asking a lot of important questions, I think I
Mhm.
would have responded to them in a different way before I did my own personal work. Um,
Yeah, I
so,
think that's a great piece
or
of
you do
advice.
it, and then eventually, when you do it again, like a year later, just because you've done more personal growth and perhaps you
Sure.
have this new goal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting how many clients come to the session with one specific goal. And after that first conversation, I always ask people immediately, what is it that you want to work on? And then we have the conversation. And then I ask again, because very frequently that answer changes.
Right.
Someone might come in and say, I want to work on anxiety, but by the end of the conversation, it's like, oh, I actually need to work on this belief that I'm good enough.
Right.
And
Yeah. And the anxiety is like what you're experiencing, but
right.
you've got to come to that root, and in that
Yeah.
first 30 minutes, it's so important. You ask really good questions, and And that's why I would recommend people to have, like, make sure you've got a nice quiet space and you're ready to think, you've maybe exercised that day, or you've had your caffeine or whatever, you've had a good night's sleep and you're ready to really think about the answers, because
Yeah.
it's important, because you're going to guide the meditation on specifically those things.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Well, that's really great advice. And I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And it was wonderful to work with you in the past and to see you again today. So I am
I remember
grateful.
when I first got on the video, I was like, oh, it's her. Because for 2 years, you kinda, like, listen for 2 years, I'm listening
Right.
to your voice, and, I get like, every Tuesday morning, I'm like, "Ooh,
What's
what's
coming?
gonna be released?" And, anyways, so I
That's
have
funny.
definitely recommended your channel to a lot of people, and,
I appreciate it.
it's, uh, it's really been helpful, so
Yeah. Well, it's a little surreal to me to, meet with someone who is like, "Oh, I'm awestruck." And I'm like, "Wait a second. I'm just a normal person." And it's
no, no,
always
I
a
could list
little
off,
weird.
like, if you ask me the name of my top 30 meditation, I could list off what they are and what we do in the meditation and what you say,
Wow.
and, at what point you started changing your music, and then when you went back to this music, like, honestly, it's actually a
That's
little
funny.
bad.
So I probably throw you off when I change the thumbnails, don't I?
I know, it's like, "What?"
What happened?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have had a couple people comment like, this used to have a different thumbnail on it or a different picture, and they get a little
I'm like,
confused.
"Is it a
So
new one?" No, it's just a different picture.
this is a different picture.
Yeah.
Well, when I learn more about YouTube, I have to, update things, and
Right.
who knows if that really even does anything, but
I think it does,
yeah.
the name of the meditation and the look of, I guess it's a thumbnail. I didn't know what
Yeah,
it
it's
was
called,
called.
sorry.
It's I mean, there's also marketing involved in that, right? There's something
Yeah.
that will catch your eye, and then you're going to choose that meditation over something else, maybe.
Yeah.
People. So
Depending on how you're feeling or what you're, looking to feel out of the practice. So,
yeah. Mhm.
well, that's all very good feedback, and I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I am grateful.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.